Hello, my friends. It's me, Andrew Fantasia. Long time no see, and welcome back to our next review marathon. Before we get started, please click and like and subscribe and do all the things that YouTube is forcing you to do because they're watching, man. And also, if you happen to be a fantasy fan or you know somebody who just loves when people swing swords around and cast magic spells, then my friend, my brother, my sister, you need to do yourself and myself a solid and check out We Were Wizards, which is the fantasy novel series that I wrote. Look, there they are. There's two of them. The fantasy novels series that I wrote. We Were Wizards is available on Amazon all over the world right now in paperback, in hardcover, and in ebook. Check out We Were Wizards. Now, there's a link in the description below where you can get a copy for yourself or the fantasy fan in your life. All right, let's get this wagon train a-moving and review some films. So if you're new to Review Marathon, welcome. Here's how it works. The rules are, for 3 months, I watch as many movies that I can, and then I come here and I talk about them. But the rules are, 1, they have to be movies I have never seen before, and 2, they have to be movies that are at least a year old at the time that I'm watching them. That's it. How many did I manage to get my eyeballs and earballs on within the months of October through to December of 2024? The answer is 36 movies that I got to watch. It was a nice chunk of films, and I know what all of you Harry Potter fans are thinking. You're thinking, 36? But last year there were 37! Well, some of them are a lot bigger than last year, okay? Alright, let's not waste any further time. Let's talk about these 36 motion pictures, how they made me feel, and maybe, just maybe, you might see something that you want to check out for yourself. Let the review marathon begin. All you need is death. Old Irish folk horror is always guaranteed to raise at least one of my eyebrows, so the concept here, an ancient Gaelic song being used as a spell to hold back an evil curse, did enough eyebrow raising to make me look like a Botox housewife. And for the first act, All You Need Is Death sets a really spooky stage, and then it spirals until it feels like it just shits the bed. There's a clandestine group who collects folk songs, and they're sinister about it for no real reason, and then there's a magic pregnancy, and a guy is a eunuch, and somehow, I don't know. I feel like the story they started telling was way more interesting than the one they ended up telling. The Amityville Horror. Haunted house movies are tricky for me because, full disclosure, I'm scared of them. I've got to be really careful with which ones I watch. Usually, fare from the 1970s tends to be tame enough for me to handle, and the Amityville Horror was tame enough for me to handle, but I didn't enjoy it. I got the sense that this had to walk so that The Shining could run. In fact, Diet Shining would be an apt title for this. The final scene overdoes it with the thunder and lightning so badly that I actually began to laugh. Here's a fun drinking game. Take a shot every time it takes a character way too long to answer a phone. Assault on Precinct 13. A small group of heroes are trapped in a derelict police station as a terrifying gang lays siege to the place. This is not what I expected, and yet it's simultaneously exactly what I should have expected. It's pure, undiluted Carpenter. That means a great premise, done on a shoestring budget, simple yet effective visuals, and a terrific synth score that you'll be humming for the rest of the day. I think I was hoping there would have been a bit more of a cozy 70s vibe to this, but that's just personal preference talking. Assault is exactly what it needs to be, and it does a damn good job of being that. Audition. I'd heard the horror stories before going into this, but my gag reflex was still not prepared for what awaited me. And that's all I'll say. Yes, Audition is a horror movie. And yes, it takes a long time before it makes it clear that it's a horror movie. But the concept has you unsettled by minute 1, so it's not like it pulls the rug out from under you. It doesn't go from 0 to 100. It's more like it goes from about 10 to 100. The flashbacks were presented in a way where they didn't feel like flashbacks, so you might be a little confused first time around, and I'll never be able to cleanse certain sights or sounds from this movie out of my memory. Once you watch Audition, you can't unwatch it. The Birds. Ornithophobia is a real thing. Just ask anyone who tried to get a little too friendly with the chickens in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And if you didn't harbor any fear of our fine feathered friends before, you just might whistle a different tune after you've seen The Birds. Is it easy to get distracted by how unbelievably gorgeous Tippi Hedren is in this? Yes, totally, I'm only human. Did that stop me from enjoying the film? Not even close. What did give me pause, though, was that no attempt was made to explain exactly why this bird attack is happening. So if the most frustrating aspects of an M. Night Shyamalan movie drive you up the wall, maybe put on your anti-climax shock absorbers before you watch this. Body Bags. Full to the brim with deep-cut cameos, Body Bags tells 3 great horror stories with absolute aplomb. The first story, Gas Station, is my favorite, but when the other 2 involve a sci-fi hair transplant and Mark Hamill slowly devolving into a serial killer, you absolutely cannot go wrong. Please watch Body Bags. It's great. Cannonball. Not to be confused with The Cannonball Run, which was also about a cross-country car race. This came first. And remind me never to take Cannonball out on a date because I've never received so many mixed signals from a movie before. At some points it tries really hard to be a raunchy sex comedy, at other points it contains shockingly dark deaths. Like the speed freak characters in its own story, Cannonball has a hell of a trouble picking a lane. The Trans Am is nice though. Cat's Eye. I don't know about the cat's eye, but my eye was clearly closed because I've been sleeping on this one for far too long. A fun 80s anthology picture all around, as well as being one of the best Stephen King cinematic works. This movie is bonkers, and it just never stops having fun, and I can't see anything wrong with that. That cat might also be the best animal actor of all time? Maybe? Chef. Jon Favreau, how dare you? How dare you make a movie where every single piece of food your character prepares looks so goddamn good I was salivating throughout the entire runtime. I have a golden rule when it comes to films. If I've never seen one before, I never eat while I'm watching it. But damn it, Chef made me break the rule because everything the titular chef cooked looked so effing good that I physically could not keep watching until I'd made myself a sandwich. Chef gave me sandwich envy. I hope you're happy, Favreau. Also, the movie rocks. A Christmas Story Christmas. Yes, this joins Beverly Hills Cop : Axel F in the category of, is that really the best title they could come up with? Legacy sequel that actually ends up being way better than it has any right to be. So far, it's a small category, but I'm guessing that'll change in the next few years when we get the inevitable Forrest Gump Forrest or The Godfather : Michael C. But yes, A Christmas Story Christmas is great. It has the exact same sense of humor as the original, which doesn't sound like it's important, but that actually helps make it feel like no time has passed. Give this a chance and prepare to be pleasantly surprised. The Craft. 4 goth girls delve a little too deep into the waters of black magic, and suddenly it transforms them from quiet outcasts to attention-seeking little avarice monkeys. Which is gonna witch, right? I think the third act kind of lost some steam, but everything before that is solid as a cursed quartz. All 4 lead actors do a terrific job. It's easy to see why The Craft became such an iconic 90s staple. Dark Star. Dark Star is John Carpenter's directorial debut, and, well, I had no idea what to expect, but it wasn't this. One of my least favorite genres of all time is a genre I like to call, oh no, the space station is breaking. But along comes this shaggy-haired, reefer-eyed movie bearing the confidence of a film with a much bigger budget, and it basically gives us Catch-22 in space. It's nothing to write home about, but it takes that premise and does a terrific job running with it. And it comes complete with talking bombs, beach ball aliens, and some damn impressive facial hair. I have the utmost respect for this motion picture. Defending Your Life. I will never turn down an opportunity to see different writers' interpretations of the afterlife, and Defending Your Life ended up being one of my favorites. Bottomless Italian food aside, it tells a great little story that perfectly blends comedy, romance, and fantasy. It's a lot slower and quieter than most comedies, and that might take some getting used to, but it is so worth it in the end. Great afterlife stories should always give us hope for whatever it is that comes next. And if that involves an affable Rip Torn having my back while I embark on a whirlwind romance with a woman who looks like Meryl Streep, I am 100% ready for that ride. The First Purge. In this writer's humble opinion, The Purge was one of the most simple yet brilliant concepts the envelope-pushing horror industry has introduced in a long time. There's so much room to play with this. Obviously, the idea of going back to take a look at the very first Purge was an inevitable no-brainer, and I think for the most part, they told a cool origin story, though the ending could have used a few more minutes. It stops pretty abruptly after a couple of very unsatisfying villain deaths, and doesn't take the time I think was necessary to hit home that we're seeing the inception of a national tragedy. Yes, in a nutshell, I am saying that the first Purge wasn't sad enough. Sue me. Frenzy. One of Hitchcock's final films may not be one of his best, but it delivers on what's important. Cozy, retro, British goodness. If you ever wanted to immerse yourself in the streets of 1970s London, I can't think of a better way to do it. Sure, Frenzy's subject matter isn't sunshine and rainbows, but it's hard not to feel a little at ease when you're gliding past red telephone boxes, cable knit sweaters, fruit stalls, and potato trucks. Throw in a cameo by Clive Swift from Keeping Up Appearances, and you're in for a jolly old bit of fun that's so British it makes Harry Potter look like it's set in Utah. Fried green tomatoes. I frickin' love Kathy Bates. She is just one of the most charming performers in the business. It is physically impossible for me to watch her without a smile on my face. And then along comes Fried Green Tomatoes, one of those films that makes you smile and ugly cry simultaneously. So thank God nobody recorded me watching this, because I must have looked like the Joker after biting into a lemon. Fried Green Tomatoes is wonderful, and it represents a genre of film that doesn't exist anymore. Period dramas set in the American South. Remember those? Between this, Forrest Gump, and Steel Magnolias, we used to be flooded with them. There should be film festivals dedicated exclusively to extinct genres, and this needs to be one of them. The Furies. I guess if you take The Hunger Games and add the board game Final Girl, you'll get whatever the hell The Furies is supposed to be. It's a Shudder original, so I want to give it as much love and praise as I can, but it was just kind of sloppy and uninteresting for me. The leads turn in some decent performances, and the kills are actually quite creative, but unlike Crystal Lake, the world of The Furies isn't one I have any interest in returning to. Hush. When it comes to modern horror, I think Mike Flanagan might be batting 1,000. Hush takes a simple home invasion / slasher concept and pulls it in exciting new directions. Namely, what if the victim being stalked by a psycho killer is also a deaf mute? It's tense and frightening without ever relying on jump scares, and it's just a masterclass in good, solid writing. I Know What You Did Last Summer. Apart from having an absolutely all-star, grand slam, Avengers-level Who's Who teen heartthrob cast, I Know What You Did Last Summer was like the British food of slasher movies. It was incredibly bland and way too obsessed with fish. The saving grace was that I got to look at Jennifer Love Hewitt for 101 minutes. In fact, I'm still looking at her while I write this review, and sorry, what was I talking about again? Right, yeah, it's last summer. Gotta love summer. Sure. Next movie. Kiss the Girls. I've never read a James Patterson novel, but if they're anything like this movie adaptation, then I get it. Just a satisfying by-the-numbers potboiler about catching a creepy-ass serial killer. Though, sure, maybe Patterson was trendsetting enough that calling his work a potboiler is a bit unfair. Regardless, Kiss the Girls reminded me of just how easy it was in the 90s to make a blockbuster out of dedicated law enforcement guy is tracking a serial killer. Those always played well. Now you're lucky if you get that kind of thing as a streamer original. Even though I didn't love this particular movie, I miss these kinds of movies. Love Happy. A Marx Brothers picture is always a bit like a vaudeville variety show tied together with a string of plot, and Love Happy ain't no exception, sweetheart. There's going to be hijinks and great jokes and physical comedy and pantomime, and someone is going to play an instrument really, really well for like 5 straight minutes, and it's all good. The biggest difference is that this one has a sardine can full of diamonds and a Marilyn Monroe cameo. Do with that information what you will. Orphan First Kill. There's no way I'm going to spoil the plot of Orphan because it's just too good. So good, in fact, that I turned my nose up when I heard they were making this prequel. How on earth, I thought, are they going to come up with something as interesting as Part 1? Orphan First Kill proved me wrong by saying, like this, dork, and then showing me what it had under the hood. I'm not spoiling anything about Orphan First Kill either, but it's great. Bring on Part 3. Saltburn. There are 2 kinds of stories I adore. Stories with great villains, and stories set in old British country houses. So yes, I really liked Saltburn. The best part is, some of the more, let's say, unconventional scenes were spoiled for me ahead of time, but that still didn't stop me from enjoying the hell out of the story. And the ending packed such a deliciously sinister wallop that I did not see coming at all. 100% recommend. Just don't watch Saltburn with the kids. Or with a date. Or with anybody, really. Turn the TV so it's facing the corner of the room and just have a night to yourself. Shutter Island. Normally, I'm really averse to movies that rely on the whole, whoa, everything is a hallucination, nothing is real gimmick, and most of Shutter Island's middle is pretty much that. However, the ending more than made up for it, revealing a very interesting human heartbeat underneath all of the madness. It took a little long to get there, and the bulk of the movie was a chore, but I'm satisfied with the end result. Smile. To quote Cal Evans from Undergrads, "Ghost, you're scary, guy." Smile gives us a concept that's brilliantly simple to execute while delivering a whole lot of chills and giving horror fans an iconic image that will stand the test of time. What more could you ask for from the genre? As I just said with Shutter Island, I'm not a fan of using "most of this stuff is just a hallucination" as a plot device, but I guess Smile pulls it off about as well as it can be pulled off. A Star is Born, 1954. I know this is an absolute classic, but I think it could have been better. It's just that I can't watch Judy Garland, powerhouse though she is, without thinking how much better this film would be if it told her story. Because not only is Garland's story a genuine Hollywood tragedy, it's an even bigger Hollywood tragedy than the fictional one presented in A Star is Born. So while the whole thing is brilliantly acted and very emotional, it really just ends up feeling like there's an even more profound tune it could have been singing. Starman. We've all seen a bunch of stories like this before, where an alien takes human form and tries to fit into society with awkward and wacky results, but Starman operates on pure, undiluted sincerity, and I think that's why everyone holds it in pretty good esteem. As a romantic drama that just happens to have an all-powerful alien in it, it works well. It may not be Carpenter's most popular film of the 80s, but it's got enough going on under the hood to leave a positive, lasting impression. Stingray. A gang of notorious criminals hides their stash of drugs in a used Corvette Stingray, which is bought the next morning by a couple of average schmoes. What follows is a 100-minute-long car chase across Missouri that just keeps going. I had fun, and unlike Cannonball, Stingray has the decency to commit to being a comedy all the way through. Pretty sure every single scene is just wall-to-wall Tales of Halloween. I don't comprehend why it's so hard for Hollywood to nail down the concept of Halloween anthologies. Season of the Witch started us off on the right track, but then people had to complain. That led us down the long, long road to this oddity, which I think can best be described as, what if Trick or Treat had no identity? I'd say about 90% of its little mini-stories fall flat on their face by the end. The first one was probably my favorite, but once all was said and done, it just made me all the more heartbroken that Halloween 3 and Trick or Treat never took off the way they should have. Teeth. Oh boy, finding a YouTube-friendly way to describe this is going to be fun. Alright, here goes. Teeth is about a sexually repressed young woman who was born with a set of razor-sharp teeth. Except they're not in her mouth. They're somewhere else. And that's everything you need to know about teeth in a nutshell. It's not for everybody, so enter at your own risk. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Terrifier 2. It takes a set of brass boys to make a 2.5-hour long slasher movie. I'm a guy who loves movies that are A, slashers, B, long, and C, Terrifier 1. So I settled myself in for an absolute treat and came out the other side with an Art the Clown-sized lump of disappointment on my chest. I thought Terrifier 2 was a huge step down from the first one. I think I can attribute that to the fact that Art is just too supernatural. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to what he can or can't do. He's like the cabin in Evil Dead, just chaos without boundaries. That makes it really hard to care. And when you don't care what happens in a film, well, the writing's on the wall, isn't it? Lauren Lavira is great. David Howard Thornton is great. This motion picture is not. Major bummer. Torn Curtain. Man, Hitchcock really knew how to make them. I'm a sucker for anything set in early 20th century Europe, where spies wore high-collared trench coats and sent telegrams and rode trains and carried secret messages inside cigarette cases. Torn Curtain is all that, plus Julie Andrews and Paul Newman. Now that's a mathematical formula I can get behind. And if you like mathematical formulas, there's a scene in Torn Curtain that is basically your kink. It takes a bit to get going, but once it goes, it goes. If you think Speed has the most intense scene involving a bus, you haven't seen anything yet. Triangle of Sadness. As a scathing indictment of the disgustingly rich, Triangle of Sadness understood the assignment. It's also uproariously funny and unpredictable. You will never guess where it ends up. Though it's not always the most subtle, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes a real-world problem is such a problem that you kind of have to punch it square on the nose. Look, it's a Palme d'Or movie with a philosophical message that's actually enjoyable to watch. That right there is one hell of an accomplishment. Twilight Zone, the movie. It's really hard to talk about this without bringing up the absolutely devastating tragedy that occurred on set, a tragedy which resulted in one adult and 2 small children being killed. But if we look at the movie just as a movie, it does a great job adapting the whole Twilight Zone formula for the big screen. Back then, when TV shows made the jump to cinema, they were given what I like to call the movie effect. Just look at Casper, the Beverly Hillbillies, and the Flintstones as benchmark examples. It's where everything about the original is expanded, cranked to 11, and pushes boundaries its TV counterparts never dared push. Twilight Zone 100% has the movie effect, and to fans of the show, seeing this in 1983 must have been transformative. Van Helsing. Somewhere out there, someone was dying to see Wolverine and Faramir bopping around Central Europe fighting Dracula because Van Helsing got made. This has a reputation of being a Jar Jar Binks kind of blockbuster, a laughable reminder of how bad overblown Hollywood slop can get. To those naysayers, I say, Van Helsing's alright. I love the Universal monster, so of course I'm gonna have a good time. While it doesn't hold a candle to The Mummy, it's full of the same swashbuckling fun. Give Van Helsing a chance. We need more movies like this in today's day and age. The Zone of Interest. I say this without hyperbole, folks. This isn't the most entertaining movie. It's not one of the best movies either, but it's probably one of the most important movies ever made. The Zone of Interest is essentially about what happens when people are complacent in the face of evil. It's a very grim reminder of our responsibility as humans to stand up for what's right. And it's tackled in a way I've never seen this subject matter tackled before. Truly haunting stuff. And with that very troubling and depressing movie, we have hit 36 films. We did it! That is the end of Review Marathon 16. I'm going to see you here in another 3 months. Hopefully I'm not dead by then. So I'll see you back here again for Review Marathon 17 and for whatever else comes next on the channel. Until then, my wonderful, gorgeous friends, adios.